Good morning. It's that next chapter of that alteration. And once again, motion sickness, close your eyes. Now you can open them again. Okay. Since we last spoke on this alteration, if you remember, I'd let out several pleats on one side and one pleat on the other to reduce the width across the back so that we would have a proper division, split, whatever, between apron and pleats. So since then, I'd sewed every pleat bottom to top because that was the neatest appearance. I've shaped and sewn the inner apron. There are a couple of spots where the yarn has been tugged and pulled out with a little loop. A couple of them I have dealt with, and they're kind of hidden right now under the basting, is that I've taken a visible loop and then with the eye of a needle, with the blunt end of a needle, just coaxed that yarn back down and just worked my way along. It's like lacing up a set of boots. In fact, let's call it lacing from now on. I didn't manage, sometimes you can, by pulling that and decreasing the tension, I think, you can sort of smooth it down by again, lacing it back into position. I wasn't able to completely do that because even after moving it a dozen or so times, I managed to get it around the corner. I'm just looking for it. I can't see it right now. And there's still a loop, but the loop is now hidden on the inside where it won't get where it won't snag again. And I'll draw the customer's attention to that. So yesterday I got the canvas in and gave it a press. And again, I understand why the original maker did what she did to get as many pleats. She doubled up. I understand it, but I don't think I'm gonna follow that example because, as I'd predicted, the double stacked pleats are quite difficult to press. Well, time consuming. You have to press one and then lay down and press the top, and it's I understand it, but I don't think I'm going to follow that example. I mean, there are some times, in fact, most times in the past, I've come up against something that, frankly, isn't right, and I haven't made any effort to understand it because I have this sort of atavistic belief that bad ideas are contagious or not. Now, I have a couple of spots. There was one there and one there where the yarn has been pulled out, but it looks like it's been severed, so it's a loose end sticking out. I'm gonna trim it a bit closer because it's not a loop. It's not gonna go away. But I'm not gonna trim it so close because with the normal motion of the kilt being worn, sometimes the yarn retracts back inside. But I'm going to point those out to him. Okay, so it's pressed. I've shaped the inner apron, and I've just put, because he wants his two buckles on the right hip. So I've sewn the lower in place. I haven't sewn the upper one in place for a couple of reasons. One of them is because I'm sure that I'm going to find out that I'm going to have to adjust this relative to the top of the kilt. I only have to adjust this one because this one is, I'm going to wait till I've adjusted and fastened this one, and then I set the strap at that place, and then I just measure down and set the strap for this one. This one doesn't require any adjusting. And I should note about the tabs and also the belt loops. Now, belt loops are for the sporran strap. They're not for the waist strap, because if you need a belt to hold your kilt in place, your kilt simply doesn't fit. And he said he wanted the belt straps on to wear his belt. My response was, we're just going to tighten your belt so it doesn't need it. But he's adamant he wants these there for the sporran strap. Normally, I would remake these to match the tartan underneath, but I don't know how much of this, because how much of this I'm going to be using on the top band, because the top band certainly isn't long enough, even with the generous extension that the previous maker left in. This is not long enough. I might be able to get a top band out of these two pieces, and so I'm not going to know what material I've got left over until I've done that. I could possibly make a top band belt loop out of this, but of course it doesn't match that, does it? So what's the point? And a couple of questions were asked about the stitching, about how the stitches were just catching, they weren't catching enough of the cloth, they were just catching a single yarn. Again, and the question was whether some application of the canvas would offset that. Well, no, because the stitching in the most dramatic case was down here, miles away from the canvas, and also here, which again is not affected by the canvas, because nobody in their right mind is going to put the canvas in while they're sewing these seams. And I actually took a look at this. I think what they've done, I'm not sure how clearly you can see this. I'll look at this video after I've made it, and then see if I have to shoot an addendum to it. But looking at the top of the kilt, we can see these series of back stitches done in white basting thread. So I believe what she's done is she's folded the pleats into position, the double stacked pleats. She's folded those into position and then basted them in place. And then rather than doing a fell stitch from the outside, she has sewn, you won't be able to see it. I'm going to lift this up to the camera in the off chance that it'll actually be in focus. This may be a completely failed attempt. I don't know if you can see that. There's a running stitch. It started here. I can see the knot. There's a running stitch in red thread, and it's got to be 10 or 12 per inch. I'll check that with my measuring tape in a minute. But there's a running stitch running the length of the fell where she's sewn this way rather than this way. And she's sewn it with rather a heavier thread than I would choose. It's almost I don't know the gauge, but it's almost a buttonhole thread, and it's silk, which is wonderfully strong. But unfortunately, it's stronger than the cloth. But yeah, so I've never seen that before. I guess the advantage is there's absolutely no stitch visible from the outside unless you really pull the seam. Right? You can see it's coming apart there. But it didn't always go through enough of the cloth in the lower, and that's why I was getting pulled yarns. So interesting. I've learned a few things with this kilt. Now, it's 8:45. I've been working for a couple of hours. A client will be arriving in about an hour, and I'm going to fit the kilt to him because, again, with his particular I don't know the damn word, with his particular build, I really can't proceed farther. Say for one, setting this buckle, setting this strap, again, reversing the order of buckle and strap, because I don't dare open a buttonhole here because I have no real sense of what the cloth is like underneath. So rather than do some irreparable damage, I'm sort of taking the coward's way out and I'm reversing that. But this method works. This is tried and true. This method works. And yeah, so having fit it to him, I'll be able to place this buckle to make sure the kilt is compensating for his hips. And then I'll be marking the outside apron, chalking it so I see how it falls. He'll go off to the business he has in town today because he lives a few hundred miles away up the coast. He'll go off and finish his day, and then I will shape and tailor the front apron, set the top bands, set the straps, give it another press, and then set it aside for his next trip to town. Okay, so I can put that away. I think I'll grab another kilt and start working on that one. Right.